Lord of the Rings living card game, or, I was going to say or Arkham Horror living card game. Both very, very popular Fantasy Flight titles. One has been out for a while. One is continuing to evolve. The question of this podcast, following up on some comments, one or the other. Thoughts on which one might be better or what direction to go in. I'm going to offer my perspective and then, of course, as always, push it out to the comments to get your guys' feedback and kind of make that decision, especially if you're looking to commit to one of these systems. Now, the challenge here, these are living card games, which means you have a core and you have a core set. And from that core set, it builds out with big packs, small packs, all sorts of packs that is going to be continuing on. And the various adventure paths are replayable. There are new ways to approach based on items, based on characters. This is not a one-and-done type game for both of them. This is something you buy the core and you pretty much commit yourself. You've committed yourself to buying future releases, future adventure paths, future packs. You can go crazy and go all in. You can buy at a slower pace on there. This might be a good thing. It might be a bad thing depending on your budget, depending if you're a completionist. But the longevity of the game is going to move on and on and on. So that's kind of the first thing, knowing when you're getting involved with a living card game. It's not the same as Pathfinder, the adventure card game. I love it so much. You have the core box. You have a couple of adventure paths on there. It's extensive. There's a lot, but it's not a living type game on there. In terms of which one, well, the number one thing in my opinion, both of these games, the mechanics are very good. The artwork is very good. The narrative is very good. So my ultimate deciding factor with some slight modifications would be your player personality. What do you feel like playing? And both of these games are going to get massive play. I own Lord of the Rings. I have been continuing those adventure paths. My buddy owns Arkham. I play it with him on there. I am thinking about leaping into it, but I get to avoid that temptation because we tend to play it pretty regularly, and I'm happy using his cards and his components on there, being always respectful, of course. But like me, he sleeves all of his cards and has the premium components and does all that on there. So I would say if you really like the fantasy, the Lord of the Rings, you want to push through there, you go with that. If you like kind of the more, kind of elder gods type thing, 1920s type stuff, you go with the other one. Both of these games you will be playing a lot of because they work solo. They work with a second player on there. They're going to really pull a lot of action in playing it. That's why I say ultimately you have to go with theme. Okay, well, Fritz, I really could go with both themes on there. They're both excellent. They're both really, really tight. What do you think? What would be the tiebreaker? The tiebreaker for me would be a matrix of your budget, availability, patience, and collection strategy on there. In that Lord of the Rings is really established. I got into it late. I do not even remotely have all of this stuff. I've got a couple of the early cycles. I've got the saga boxes. I've got a lot of stuff, but there's a lot I missed along the way, and reprints are few and far between. Fantasy Flight has a track record of kind of randomly reprinting stuff, doing a good job reprinting stuff, not so good. So if you jump into the Lord of the Rings right now, there's a massive amount of content, but some of it might be challenging to get. Now on the quest side, that's not so important because there's lots and lots of quests in the boxes that you can buy. But living means you want to have the other cards for deck building and for character exploration. You're going to be missing out on some of that. So I'm not saying don't go into it, but it requires a different strategy. Arkham is still somewhat new. There's stuff, most of it is available. It's easier to acquire on secondhand sources on there. So if you're jumping in and you're going to stick with it for a while, it would be easier to get in the cycle and start now because it has less of a living history compared to Lord of the Rings on there. A secondary note, both of these systems, part of it is also, a big part of it is the community, meeting other players, strategizing, listening to podcasts, watching YouTube videos and stuff. Lord of the Rings, just by its very nature of being better established, older, in terms of cycle, and Lord of the Rings offers so much more supporting content. And that's another part of the living card game strategy. You physically play it, you work on the characters, you work on the deck building, you work on exploring different ways to complete each quest, physically, tabletop time. And then the other time when you're supposed to be actually doing your job or actually studying for school, you can be on YouTube watching playthroughs, watching strategies, going through card combinations on there. You get kind of double play of enjoying the narrative, of enjoying the game. Lord of the Rings, again, by its very nature, just has a stronger effect on there. So which one? Hard to say, hard to push through, but way out availability. And definitely weigh out player personality and narrative. Which universe would you really prefer exploring around in?